Hello everyone. So today's video is all about growing from seed. Just a quick look at the varieties I'm growing this year, when I start them, what care they need, and why it's a great way to grow in your tropical garden this year. If you've never grown any plants from seed, then it's a great year to start it this year. You'll find it's very rewarding and it's a lot easier than what you think. Now, the two main factors that plants need, other than water and a good seed compost, it's basically the heat and the light that you can give them. Now, you can have the fanciest propagator set up with grow lights and everything, or you can start your seeds a bit later, maybe on a kitchen windowsill, give them a bit more light, harden them off, and then grow them outside. It doesn't matter how much technology you've got access to, it's all about the basics of giving the plant what it needs and bringing it outside so you can plant it at the right time. As I'm filming this video, it's mid-February, which is still very early to sow a lot of seeds. So if you haven't planted anything already, absolutely don't worry, plenty of time yet. Now, what I've sown already, firstly, we've got Dahlia and cordyline, that's Indivisa. Now, these are more shrubs, so I'm not just growing them for the display this summer, it's more the long game with these, and the main reason I'm sowing them from seed is purely because it's very cost effective. The plants were, especially in the case of the cordyline, they're quite hard to get hold of, and they do go for quite a decent amount per pot. So if I want multiples, this is my way of planning ahead, sowing some seeds. Hopefully they can spend this summer outside in the pots, go into the polytunnel greenhouse this winter, and then I'll hopefully have some actual decent plants to put out next spring. But I wanted to get them started now, purely because if I started them a couple of months ago, no matter what, they'd germinate really quickly and I'd be stuck with a lot of plants I need to give a lot of light for, and I just don't have the space at the minute. So now's the right time. Next up, we've got the more tropical style plants that I'm growing for this year's summer display. So firstly, we've got Canna, Altonstenii, Canna Ricinus, and Musa sycamensis, the banana. So the main reason I've sown these this early is purely, again, so they get to be a decent sized plant, but this time they'll hopefully become a decent plant in this year's summer display. Especially with the Cannas, if you sow them February, early March, there's a good chance they'll get to a flowering size by summer and be a decent sized plant by autumn this year, which I'm obviously trying to get as much greenery out there as I can without spending a lot of money. So that's the main reason I've sown those this early. They take a while to germinate, they take a while to bulk up, and then from then it'll be another month or so before they get to a flowering size. So it's important to get those sown early. If you haven't actually got any, don't worry, you've still got a few weeks yet to get some in, but I'd like to see those sown before the end of March to really get a good chance of getting a flowering plant this year. In true Blue Peter style, here are some cannas that I sowed early in the week. Now, the way I germinated these is actually the boiling water method, which I know is popularised by Yorkshire Chris's video, and essentially, canna seeds have got a really tough outer shell, and you need to break through that in order to speed germination up. So there's a few methods of doing this. You can either do it mechanically with a file, or use nail clippers just to take a bit of the edge of the shell off, or if you use boiling water, like in the method that Yorkshire Chris has popularised, basically what you do, I use a cup but any container will work, you put the seeds in it, pour in boiling water, leave it for around 20 seconds, pour it out, and then just fill it with warm water, leave them in the container, and keep swapping the water every day just to keep that oxygen in there, and you'll find that they germinate within 2 or 3 days, not a problem at all. It's a lot quicker than having to individually sand them, and it's the method that I have always used the past couple of years and will be using going forwards. I'm not experimenting with a lot of other plants this way, but I imagine it will work on some of the other tough banana plants, those sort of things. So those, I would have potted those up already, but I wanted to show them in this video and I just haven't had the time during the week. So those will be potted up this weekend, maybe into individual pots or perhaps a tray, so I can grow those on and get them to a good size by May, which is when they can be planted out. So that's cannas. They're really easy to germinate if you use the boiling water method, and as I've said, now is a great time to start cannas. Any of the sort of more tropical plants that take a while to germinate, like the bananas and the big leaf plants that will bring a lot of exotic vibe to your summer garden. So, with those out of the way, what am I sowing next? Now, next up, what I've got are a variety of what I'd say are some are tropical, some are slightly tropical looking, but they're all plants I enjoy growing as part of the whole sort of tropical foliage garden. So, going through these, what have I got? We've got Dahlias. Now, those, like a lot of plants, they can't be planted out until, say, early to mid-May when the risk of frost has passed. So the main thing with these is don't sow them too early, otherwise they'll get too lanky, especially if you're not using additional lighting. So for me, the magic month for sowing a lot of these kind of plants, you're looking at March realistically. Mid-March is always a good time. You give them a few weeks to germinate, and by the time you get to early May and you potted them up again, you've got a decent sized plant that's ready to go out, and you'll have flowers by mid to late summer. I've also got some Nicotianas, again not tropical but I like the appearance of them, and a lot of different sunflowers, pumpkins, more pumpkins and sunflowers, and Cabia scandens, which is the cup and saucer vine. So for all these plants, March is a magic month for me. If you grow plants like this in March, then you don't have to worry about too much in the way of additional lighting, propagation. You can grow them on your windowsill at that time, and as long as you're hardening them off properly, you can plant these out by early May, say mid-May to be safe, and they'll grow rapidly away from there. So March is the month for most of my seeds. I started some earlier than that, and there are some that I will plant later. Speaking of plants that I will plant later in the spring, this is the number one plant I see asked about in the tropical forums, on Facebook, when can you sow it? And this plant is Ricinus. Now, I grow a few varieties. Personally, one of my favourites is Blue Giant, which is, I believe, that one there in the picture. But I also grow Purple Giant, or New Zealand Purple. It doesn't get quite as big, probably about 5-6 foot tall. But if you plant them in groups, they have an amazing sort of purple sheen to the leaves, and they do look great. It's something that definitely looks a world apart from UK vegetation. The Blue Giant, now that name is well deserved, and some years you can get them up to 3 metres tall. So it's an amazing fact to me that you can grow a plant that's 10 foot tall from a sowing in, say, late March, early April, and it reaches that height by definitely early September. To me, that's just amazing, and for that reason, they're one of the top tropical plants that you can grow from seed. Now, the reason why you don't sow a lot of these earlier than, say, late March, early April, is purely because they grow so fast. If you haven't grown Ricinus before, I definitely recommend it. Now, they can be toxic, or they are toxic, so don't eat the seeds, don't eat any parts of the plants, always wash your hands, and just common sense precautions really. But that aside, if you're growing them from seed, they germinate very quickly and they grow very quickly. Now, for this reason, if you plant them much earlier than late March, early April, you find that they grow too tall, and if you haven't got enough lighting for them, they start to get lanky and they'll flop over and not be a great plant. Whereas it's worth waiting that little bit longer. Chances are, if you start your plants later, they'll soon catch up, and if they've got, by that point, more heat, more light, more natural daylight, they'll be so much stronger for it. So that's just a quick run through of some of the seeds I'm growing this year. Mostly they're tropical type style plants, but some of them are just plants that either A, I like, or B, can fit in with the whole aesthetic of the garden. I will go through, probably later in spring, some of the more practical methods of actually sowing and growing these certain varieties. But for now, it's just a rough idea of when you're going to sow them, and to tell you all that there's actually plenty of time to plan ahead, to buy seeds, and to grow plants for this summer.